It's in my backpack.
Listen, I'm very bad about knocking my thumb into things.
You would jump off of there.
Oh, yeah, I know,
I brought a winter coat in case I needed it.
Sometimes I brought a blanket.
Hello, good evening. I call this regular board meeting of the Forest Hills Board of Education, Wednesday, April the 17th, 2024 to order. Item 1.0, call to order.
Mr. Bibb?
Here.
Dr. Simmons?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart?
Here.
Dr. Strickler?
Here.
Mrs. Jonas?
Here. Item 1.3, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.4, the safety briefing. There is an exit at the top of the steps and at the bottom of the steps. Item 2.1, motion to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion to either adopt the agenda or amend the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes. Item 3.1, motion to approve items 3.1 and 3.2 as presented. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve items 3.1 and 3.4
Sorry.
as presented, yes.
Second.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes. Sorry, guys, I was looking at the wrong agenda. That's why that was wrong. Special recognitions, Mr. Hook.
Yes, we're excited. Every year at this time, we ask each of our buildings to find one, which is nearly impossible to find a volunteer that we want to recognize. But they have complied and at least are going to name one because they're just fantastic. So we're going to start right away with, I believe it's Kyle here. Let's come on down, and the rest of the principals and their guests can make their way down the steps, and we'll roll through this.
This is always a very special time of year for a lot of reasons, and honoring our esteemed volunteers is certainly one of those things at this time of the year we look forward to. Like Mr. Hook said, choosing just one is a nearly impossible task, but I wanted to make sure to highlight Allison tonight as a volunteer that stands out amongst the pack for a lot of reasons. And I'll try to be brief so that we're not here all night, because I'm sure every principal feels like they could gush on their person. But Allison has stepped up in a wide variety of ways. We talk about the academics, arts, and athletics at Anderson. Allison has volunteered in all three of those areas over the last several years. She's been a vice president on our PTO team. It's not just because part of her duties is taking care of the treat trolley for the staff every month. Didn't hurt, but that's just one of the many ways that she brings joy to Anderson High School through her selflessness of her time and energy and resources. She works tirelessly with our bowling team, which has been having an incredible run over the last couple of years. She even subs. She responded to the call a few years ago when we were short on subs, and we just kind of put that blurb out in our family updates. Allison was one of the few to raise her hand and say, I'll do that. I will help in a tough time. And that's really what Allison's all about. She does the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. And I'm incredibly thankful that we have her in our organization to make Anderson High School a better place. So thank you, Allison.
While we're
Jada's-
transitioning, Allison even came back and helped me with coin wars at Sherwood, even though she doesn't have a kid there anymore. So, yeah.
We'll just kind of go secondary, and then we'll start moving down through the elementaries. And
Okay. Well, great. Well, it's my honor to talk to you a little bit about Laura Sassoon. Once again, just like Kyle said, everybody's going to say the same thing. You know, there's 20 or 30 or more parents that we could bring here tonight. However, I'll tell you about Laura. You know, as far as our school store spirit shop, she is the one behind it. She's been behind it for years. The one that selects what we get in, does the designs, and then not only all that, she's either, typically it's her there, or if not, she has additional parents, and she schedules those parents there during every time we have, you know, our larger home games. It's open, moves everything outside so people can see it, especially for football games, and moves everything back in. And then does that over and over and over again. And then if that wasn't enough, she thought, you know what? I feel that we're not getting enough students that are coming to this. You know, what if we have a student that wants to buy something and they can't get here in the evening to a game? I'll just open it during Flex on every Monday. So, and she asked me if that was okay. I said, absolutely, if you want to come every single Monday during the day. And that's exactly what she did. The designs are amazing. I mean, I look really good in almost all the gear. And not to mention, we even had to bring in, I'm not the easiest person to fit. And we actually had to bring in some additional material, which I don't want to get into right now, but just to fit me. But no, she does an outstanding job, and so happy to have her. Everyone appreciates it, and can't say enough things about Laura.
Good evening. As the others have already shared, we're so happy to be able to here tonight to recognize our volunteers. I'm excited to recognize Jamie Holleran. She serves as our VP of Concessions on our PTO exec board. As everyone will share tonight, we are so grateful for the parents and the community members that show up to help us in the building with our kids, supporting the events that are taking place. At the middle school, we're even more grateful because sometimes maybe your kids don't want you around all the time. And so we're grateful for those parents that keep leaning in to the experiences that we can provide students, especially because we know you're coming from your elementary homes, you've built those connections, and so being able to keep leaning in and supporting the work that we're doing, we're just really grateful for that. Jamie has an 8th grader right now and a soon-to-be Nighthawk who will be speaking a little bit this evening as well. So some of the work that we know that Jamie is really proud of, but we're also really thankful for is through her work and getting all of the volunteers to support our concessions. They also have a lot of small businesses like the Raimondo Pizza that they come in and they recognize them and partner with them in all the work that we do. With the concessions, they've raised just over $11,000 this year, and so all of that is able to go back to support the work that we're doing at Nagel with our PTO. So always grateful for Jamie and the work she does. I know that Zach McCormick, our athletic director, pointed out that while she does the work in getting volunteers, she also really, really wants to make sure kids are taken care of. So when they can stay after school and be involved in the activities, that they're also fed and they're taken care of. So we appreciate everything you do.
That's awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Holly. I'm the principal at Air Elementary. I am here tonight to honor and recognize Carolyn Pettifatti as our Volunteer of the Year recipient. Carolyn's involvement at Air has truly been remarkable. She has always been a supportive member of our school, not only when it comes to her own children, but also for the benefit of our entire school community. These past 2 years were spent serving as our PTA lead for Global Adventure Day, which is our annual celebration of cultures and traditions around the world. It is truly an unbelievable and unique experience. It also takes so much prep work and planning behind the scenes. Another large task that she has taken on in her current role as PTA treasurer this year, she has really helped support the transition of our Air PTA to an Air PTO. Carolyn takes on these huge projects and never complains, at least not out loud. When I asked our staff what they appreciated the most about Carolyn's support, comments were shared that Carolyn has always been so positive and eager to help others for years. She has taken on Destination Imagination teams. She has helped make author visits possible for our entire school. She has been a staple in our VIE program for many years, and so much more. The biggest theme from our staff is that Carolyn just loves helping others, and we couldn't be more thankful for her ongoing support. I asked one Falcon, Harry, a 5th grader at AIR, what all this volunteer work meant to him as a son who sees his mom do so much for the school. And his response was, I just love that I get to see my mom at school. He also shared his favorite event that his mom has helped with over the years is definitely Global Adventure Day. Carolyn's selfless, generous attitude and approach often show up in many ways that are behind the scenes and without recognition. But the truth is that she should be recognized publicly because she does so much for so many. She should be honored because of her tireless work in making AIR a better place. It is my pleasure and honor to recognize Carolyn Petapati this evening and to show our immense gratitude for your dedication and support of AIR. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yep.
All right, good evening. My name is Joy O'Brien. I have the honor of being the Maddox Elementary School principal, and I would like to introduce you to Barbara Purcell. Barb's daughter Abby started in kindergarten in 2018, and Barb got excited about volunteering and jumped right in. She's decorated our hallways with artwork. She's held a bookmark design competition for our students, and she's been the Forest Hills Council PTO representative for 4 years and served as the VP of Communications for our PTO board. She has also served as our VP of Student Services, so Barb is very, very active and visible in our school. Barb has been a part of making many special memories at Maddox, and even today, Barb showed up to be a hallway monitor for OST bathroom breaks. So that was awesome to see her there. I did ask her daughter, Abby, who is a 5th grader, hi Abby, at Maddox, if she wanted to share anything about her mom. So this is a message from Abby, and I might cry too. I'm happy my mom helps at school because I have more time to be with her. She can also come with me on field trips. In 3rd grade, I went on a trip to the museum and my mom got to help. I'm very proud of her, and I think my mom is the most amazing person in the world. Congratulations, Barb.
Good evening. I'm Jody Davidson, and I'm the principal here at Mercer Elementary School. It is my pleasure to recognize our Volunteer of the Year, Johanna Good. In 2022, I had this random idea that we would change our outdated preschool playground into a garden, as it had to be removed. Johanna sent me an email asking what would the commitment be and what would the volunteers be required to do. Being a humble person, she of course downplayed her knowledge and her willingness to help. Johanna worked with the teachers to create a student-friendly space for all of our children. Students recycled their pumpkins, grew new ones, planted flowers, and learned about the native plants that they are growing. This year alone, Johanna has over 180 documented hours during the school day of volunteering. When I asked her son what he loved about his mom volunteering at school, he responded, "We get to come to Mercer almost every weekend. When she works in the garden, we play on the playground." So that's the undocumented hours. The Mercer staff would like to formally thank her for her dedication and passion for the Mercer Garden. Thank you, Joanna.
Good evening, Board of Education, and all of our distinguished guests. I'm Dan Hamilton, the principal at Sherwood, and I won't reiterate exactly what they said, but I will tell you before I introduce my guest, I walked out into our office the other day and talked to my admin assistant, Mary Mitchell, and as I walked out and talked with her, I stopped and I looked, and we had two parent volunteers working on the carnival. We had 6 more parents who were walking in to help with the walking club, and then we had 2 more parents who were stuffing staff mailboxes with all of this stuff, and I just stopped and said, this just doesn't happen anywhere else, right? We can't do the things we do without these people, so we really do appreciate them. So I am here tonight to introduce Sherwood's Volunteer of the Year, Danielle Quails. I want to first say that Danielle is a honored alumni of Anderson High School. Very proud of that. And her current role at Sherwood right now, I'm going to start with this, is she is our PTO treasurer. So some of you who know how our PTOs run, that's a pretty big job, and it's a small piece of what she does. So I'm just going to start with that. Other things that she does, she organizes and was the chair of our Back to School Bash, which at the beginning of the year helps kick off the school year for all of our students. She's also been a co-chair and has helped with our carnival, which is another massive event that's going to be coming up very shortly. She's also been a part of chairing and co-chairing our picture day and our yearbook. And there's just so many other things that she's done. It's like, it's exhausting just to even say those things. She also volunteers weekly, believe it or not, in the classrooms, helping out our teachers with copying and other tasks that they have. And I think the most important thing for me is she jumps in whenever she can. And so I know when there's an event that comes up, one of the things that people often say is that she's always looking at what is best for kids. So how can we improve and make this event a little bit better? I asked our PTO president to share a few words about Danielle, and this is what Katie said. She said, Danielle is one of the most thoughtful, generous, and community-minded volunteers at Sherwood. Danielle constantly strives to help those around her. She continuously considers the needs of the students and the teachers of Sherwood and finds a way to support them. If there's an event at Sherwood, you can often find Danielle there, lending a helping hand. And we're so grateful to have her as a part of our Sherwood community, and we're stronger because of it. Like the others, I did ask Silas, her second grader, a few words. I explained the award, and it was funny. I said, your mom's getting this really cool award, and he was kind of like, yeah, it's cool. See her every day, it's great. And so I said, what is something that you notice that you just think makes your mom so special, that you notice about her that you want to share? And the thing that he said to me was, she's just so happy. And to me, that just speaks volumes at, I think, what her own kids see and what we see when Danielle is at Sherwood. So thank you, Danielle, for all that you do.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Salsed, the principal at Summit Elementary, home of the bees. It is a great honor to introduce Katie Dooley as our PTO Volunteer of the Year. Katie has been a PTO volunteer for 4 years. This year she is our VP of Communications, doing our weekly Beeline, which is a huge job, but she also has been our chairperson for Staff Appreciation Week, which I know the staff has really loved all that she has done for that over the years, Eat for Summit, and social media. She helps every year with the yearly PTO audit and has volunteered regularly in classrooms for the last 4 years. What I really love about working with Katie, because she is always just so kind, she always has a smile on her face, and she is so flexible with anything that comes her way. Beyond all of those extra responsibilities, she is also one of our Summit building subs. So she is working several days, at Summit besides doing all of these extra duties. Mrs. Dooley was voted as our Volunteer of the Year by our entire Summit staff, but Mrs. Lucas, her daughter's first grade teacher, initially nominated her for the vote. Mrs. Lucas shared, Katie has volunteered as a room parent in our class. She spends countless hours planning engaging activities for the seasonal parties. She's donated books and other learning materials in the classroom, and she often helps prepare materials for the students' daily learning. Like some others have shared, I called, Katie has 3 children at Summit, Elijah, who's in 4th grade, Carson is in 3rd grade, and Charlotte, AKA Charlie, who is in 1st grade. When I called the kids to the office today to kind of talk about this tonight, the first thing I said to them was, you're not in trouble. They appreciated that. And then I said, you know about your mom's award tonight, and I asked them how they kind of feel about having their mom as such a strong volunteer at school. They said, we appreciate all of her help. We love seeing her at school. She helps my teacher by helping other students in the classroom. We are really proud of her for getting this award. Katie, thank you so much for all your time and dedication at our school over the past 4 years, and congratulations on this recognition. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Erin Storer, the principal at Wilson. It is my pleasure to honor Lauren Hillier for always going above and beyond for our Wilson community. Lauren selflessly dedicates her time to enriching our Wilson community. Whether she is spending endless hours counting pennies through our Penny War collection for Shop and Share or serving on our PTO exec board, Lauren is all in all the time. She truly is all about doing what is best for our Wildcats. It has been a pleasure working with Lauren over the years, and I am grateful for all she does to make Wilson a wonderful place for our students, staff, and families. Lauren, thank you so much.
And if we could, Josh, I'm going to let you. Okay. If you guys want to go out for pictures, that'd be outstanding. And as they're going, again, congratulations to all our outstanding volunteers.
Congratulations, all.
As it was said, as they're walking out, as it was said, this is the tip of the iceberg. You know, we're just incredibly blessed in Forest Hills to have families and the support that we get. The tremendous time and dedication, energy that goes into it. You can go into any one of our elementaries, secondaries, and you're going to see the work going on a daily basis. So thank you to all of our parents, not just our ones that were recognized tonight. We just have a great group. So thank you.
Larry, I'd like to add to that. You know, it's so easy to get caught up. You know, the emails that we get as a board is like people angry about different things that they're not happy with the school district's doing. And, you know, can't stop saying how much we love this school district, how much our son loves this school district. And when you go and you see not just the teachers, but the volunteers helping to put on everyday activities to larger activities like field days, 5Ks, just different events, book fairs, all that type of stuff, that volunteers make it happen. So it's awesome.
You bet. We're really blessed. I'm telling you, it's not that way everywhere. It just isn't. So, thank you.
Item 5.1, Forest Hills Teachers Association. Mr. Preston.
Hi there, good evening. I have two brief updates for you tonight. First, our buildings are in the middle of administering Ohio State tests, known as OSTs, to our students. Our teachers have been working hard all year long to ensure that our students are confident and ready for these state tests. Forest Hills Teachers Association is committed to supporting continued professional development, data-driven decision-making, and collaboration between educators, administrators, and parents in order to sustain positive outcomes. Second, FHDA remains engaged in promoting the professional growth, well-being, and advocacy of our teaching staff within our district. We express our willingness to continue to work with you, the Board of Education, to achieve our shared vision of ensuring success for all students. We look forward to furthering our efforts with you in making a positive impact on the lives of students, teachers, and the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5.2, Forest Hills Foundation for Education. Mrs. Gilliard.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Gillard, like Mrs. Jonas said, and I am thrilled to be here tonight. We are weeks away, I should say, of the Forest Hills 5K, which is on Saturday, May 11th. I have a lot of folks with us here tonight that I know want to share a lot of exciting things that are happening between now and May 11th. So if you go to the next slide, Miss Laura, first and foremost, if you are ready to enjoy nice weather tomorrow, because it's not supposed to rain, join us at the 5K pre-party, which is going to be held at Wandering Monsters from 5:30 to 7:30. They are generously giving back 10% of food sales to the kids. And also, we've been promoting this with the over 600 running club students at all the elementaries that we have participating in the race, which has been great. I also want to give a special shout out. I remember 3 years ago when I came into this role and saw like how big the 5K was, and know how much it has grown in the last few years. It really takes a team of people. It's not one, it's not two. Many times it's many, many people. And so I wanted to publicly thank tonight Amy Heiss and Lauren Tischler, who are the co-chairs of the race this year. They're going to say a few words in a minute. Sarah Flora and Mana Hale, who are in charge of all of our sponsorships. Megan Wolf and Laura Dino, the after party and pre-party, and Jamie Holleran and Stephanie Brown with our volunteers. So I know Jamie was actually just recognized earlier. So I have some fun students here that we're going to just say a few words, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lauren and Amy.
I like the 5K because it brings our community together. One thing I like about the 5K is I get cool snacks and stuff, and I like seeing my mom work there. And when you support the Forest Hills 5K, you're supporting the students.
Go to the next slide so I remember what I'm talking about. Okay, so how can you get involved? You can register today. Registration is already live. We've got it pouring in. One thing we did change this year, as everybody probably knows, costs of everything went up. So one of the ways we're trying to mitigate that is it's just $2 for a t-shirt if you want it, but you can also opt out. If you can't attend, you can still do a virtual option. You can still come hang out at the after party, come to the pre-party. And we are always looking for volunteers, which if Jamie comes back in, she's in charge of volunteers. You get a really cool blue shirt. And the UPS store, our locally owned UPS store, actually sponsored all the volunteers and getting all the things they need. So we hope you sign up for that. You can go to the next one. Awesome. And then it takes a whole lot of incredible sponsors to be able to make this event go. One of them that we just mentioned was the UPS store, our locally owned UPS store. Tri-State Running has been incredible. They have done so much. One of the things was sponsoring the run groups this year. And they are also offering 20% off on run gear for students, for parents. If you go in there and you mention the 5K. You go to the next one. All right, and then we have solidified our prizes. So schools get prizes based on participation percentage, and so for elementary, they're going to get whoever's the top elementary participation, they'll get free Kona. The top secondary school will get coupons for a free Gold Star Coney. The staff with the highest percentage point, this is always a really hot ticket item, is 2 free Riverbend tickets, and the amazing Jersey Mikes donated, they'll give the second place staff all lunch. So these are really great prizes that we can't wait to tell who the winners are right now. Air is in the top fundraising position, and Laura Deno, who's on our team, is the top individual fundraiser, but there's still lots of time, so it's heating up, and we'll see who wins. Oh, yep, and here's the prizes for top fundraiser. So top fundraiser will get 4 free FCC tickets, parking, and free Tri-State running shoes. The second top individual fundraiser will get 4 free Reds tickets, 50 West gift cards, and swag. And again, those were all really nice donated things from wonderful families and sponsors. Awesome. All right, Amy, I think you're next.
Okay. So I will be quick. I know that we've talked a lot and you guys have a long meeting. The race could not happen without many people in this room. And I know I'm forgetting people, so if I forget you, please, it was not on purpose. I'm just having a senior moment because after I've turned 54, it's kind of, happens more often than not. Anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank Larry Hook for allowing the race to happen and for participating last year. It was great to see you across the finish line. We could not do it without our Bob and Rob team. They are amazing, and there we go. We have a picture in their favorite costumes. Like really having you guys, the smiles that you put on the kids' faces and the adults' faces as they cross the line is awesome. So thank you for doing that this year. We really appreciate you guys doing that. John is not here, but John Eckerd, Larry, Dean, and his team, I mean, we could not do it without them. Like, they make the race happen with all of the little logistics that we ask for them to do, dropping off gators, picking up gators, putting up fences. They are invaluable, and I just wanted to give a shout out to them. Steve Meese, we could not do this without you, without Wi-Fi. Like, I'm just telling you, the Wi-Fi last year was incredible, so thank you for all that you do for that. Tiffany Brennan just left, but Nagel, they let us take over their school for 2 days, and it's just incredible. So I really appreciate all of their help. Brian Stewart, he was here. He's up here. He is he's the man that makes this happen. Like, I could not do this without him, and he's retiring this year, so I just wanted to have a special shout out for him. I really appreciate all of your help. And Josh Bazan, thank you for all of that you do for publicity. We really appreciate that. But one person I really want to thank most of all is Jody McKinley, because she has been like my right-hand person from the very beginning. Whenever I have a question, I just pick up the phone and call Jody. She's been with the race from the beginning, so a huge shout out to her. So I know I've forgotten people, but also just thank the district, thank board members. Please come participate, run, walk. This is a great event, and really, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much.
We said it for you, but if you want to say.
Okay, well, please come out and volunteer. You're going to get free donuts, free coffee, and this beautiful shirt.
And a beautiful token.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Item 6.1, superintendent update. Mr. Hook?
Thank you, Mrs. Jonas, and members of the board. Just a variety of things. First of all, you know, once spring break happens, it's like a sprint to the finish line. It's, you know, you just, we are like deep into the, deep into the testing season. As was mentioned, the Ohio State tests in English language arts, as well as in science. Deep into those things. We also, at the secondary level, you know, are dealing with the graduation tests in algebra and biology and government and history. So a lot of stuff is happening. And just when you think it's about over, then iReady takes over. We do iReady testing coming up. Right at the end of April and through about May 10th. And that's really important because that's what we really look at in terms of driving instruction, helping to understand where our kids really are, a little bit of progress monitoring and those kind of things. And then May, of course, is fun for all the AP students because they get to take their AP tests, which are exciting. I remember being the coordinator of that way back when, and yeah, that's a little bit of a stressful time for those guys, but they do great, and that's usually the month of May. And then the final sprint, the week of May 20th, is the finals at the secondary, and then guess what? We move into graduation. Next thing I wanted to mention is prom. We're in prom season, not just obviously for us, but we start that right away here, April 20th. Just a couple of days. So Turpin High School this Saturday is prom at the 20th Century Theater, and then they go back to the high school for after prom. And then Anderson will be a couple weeks later, May 4th. That'll be at the Cincinnati Museum Center. And then again, back to the high school for after prom. They stay up way later than I can do that. So but it's an exciting time and such a memorable time for our kids. So it's exciting as we get into this. Just realize you'll start seeing a lot of nice gowns and tuxedos and different things like that. So it's a fun time for these kids, and it's a memory maker for them. As I mentioned, commencement will be this year Saturday, May 25th at the Cintas Center. Obviously on the campus of Xavier University. Anderson High School this year will be first at 3 p.m., followed by Turpin High School at 6:30 p.m. So that's Anderson at 3, Turpin High School at 6:30. Give yourself a little time. Don't try to hit that place, you know, in a whirlwind, because if you've not been to a graduation, if this is your first child, give yourself plenty of time to get there and navigate traffic, because it'll be full. So with that, I want to move into some more exciting things, and I'm going to have some of our new administrators and those that if you're here, come on down. I'm going to have you stand over here so you can get smile for the camera. Is Nathan there? Come on down, Nathan. I didn't see if Cammie showed it. If Cammie was here, she may be involved in something, so. Awesome. Well, first I want, one of them that's not here is Cammie Eberhardt. A little bit later in our meeting, she'll be brought before you and recommended for the associate principal's position at Turpin High School. That replaces Brian Lee, basically takes over those responsibilities involved with scheduling, is one of the most predominant pieces that they do. And so we're very excited for Cammie to assume this new role and the growth opportunities that gives her as well, while serving our great students at Turpin High School. Secondly, everybody knows Nathan Dumford. Nathan, step forward there. There we go. Just wave so we know. Okay. Nathan, will be recommending Nathan, who is currently an assistant principal at Turpin, will assume the role vacated by Melissa Buckaloo for the coordinator of secondary special education. And Nathan's, with his experience as a building administrator and of course a special ed background, makes him an ideal candidate for us in that position. So we're excited for that and joining us at the central office. There's a lot of work to do and we love doing that and we're glad you're there. Also want to just quickly thank Andy Jados. I don't know, Andy, if he's still here, just thank you to him and his crew at Turpin High School. Finding the right people, it's a lot of times easier said than done. It's what's on a resume doesn't necessarily translate into who it is, but they did a meticulous work, critical work, and we ended up with, we believe, two great people to come in as assistant principals at Turpin High School. The first one I want to introduce is Dr. Ashley Warren. There's Dr. Warren. And she's finishing up her 8th year as an assistant principal at Sycamore High School. So we're welcome her down to the southeast side, and that's where it's a good place to be. Also, I want to introduce JP Casanova. JP is finishing up his first year as the principal at North College Hill High School, but JP also has 15 years of building administrative experience, and some of it was not in this state, but I mean it's an incredible resume, and we're excited to have JP here. And the next one I want to introduce is Ollie Moore, and Ollie is his name will be brought forward at the district level for our Director of Student Services. He's got extensive administrative experience as a building principal at Coleraine Middle School and Princeton Middle School. He's also got central office experience at Princeton City School District. This is going to be very similar to the position that Kelly Brazo had a couple years ago. Plus, he doesn't know that we're going to give him some other things to do too. Just because we want to make sure he stays busy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing with him. The only thing I had to say about it when the interview was done is he told me he liked the University of, what was the name of that place? Michigan, that's it. So I'm going to have to work on him a little bit, but And yes, his better half is here as well by then, eh? And she can wave. There we go. We're glad you're here, and we're glad we've got Ali coming to the forest. So thank you very much. I also want to introduce finally Brian Stewart. Many of you know Brian. He's been the head custodian at Nagel.
I was waiting for you guys to get excited up there.
So we're going to let him retire for No, we're not. We're gonna move him forward as an assistant to Larry Corley, predominantly with oversight over all of our custodians. As you know, Larry's just swamped, and we need to make sure that we have a couple of guys in there that really get it and know what's needed in the maintenance and custodial arenas. And so we're excited for Brian's leadership, and we're very excited that he's agreed to stay on for a few more years. So this is some of the new faces and new positions. I just wanted to make sure you all had a chance to see them. So thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here. You can feel free to head back, and if you wish to stay, okay, but if not.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Forest Hills.
The next thing I want to mention in my update, I certainly want to congratulate, and some really exciting news, to once again receive national recognition for our award-winning music education programs. Forest Hills, this isn't the first time that they've won this, and so that's what's really neat. They just keep doing it. And hopefully I hope people don't take that for granted. It's not an easy task, but they've been named Best Community for Music Education by NAM, which is the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation. It's a prestigious honor, and we've been able to earn the past several years. And it's just a direct recognition of our entire music education program. So that's exciting. Congratulations to our music educators and all of our kids and parents that support our programs there. The award evaluates school districts, as I mentioned, for a variety of things. Again, it actually even goes into the classrooms. It's not just about performances. It's also what do we teach our kids? What are we doing, when they enter into the music programs, and what they're being taught. So it's a pretty inclusive group and process. So very excited for our music programs. Kind of in the same vein, I also wanted to make mention that we're in the midst of our performance season. So if you've got a child in one of our elementaries, or you got a child in junior high or high school, or all of them, you better have your calendar set, because this is the season when we're going to have a lot of those little concerts and end of the year programs, and that's exciting. And one of them is at the high school is really important. Is our spring musicals. And I want to make sure that, because they're both coming up, like not this weekend, but the next weekend. So April 25th through the 28th. You've got Anderson High School Theater is performing Alice by Heart. It's kind of a musical inspired by Alice in Wonderland. Turpin High School Theater has its version of the classical musical Into the Woods. It features traditional storybook characters and a unique story. So both of them run April 25th through the 28th. And if you've never seen a high school musical, it's worth the time. And finally, I think we just were notified by the state that Aaron Cox, a third grade teacher at Mercer Elementary School, has been selected as a finalist to represent Ohio in the National Review for Presidential Awards of Excellence in Mathematics, Science, and Teaching. Out of the entire state of Ohio, only 5 teachers were selected for this honor. And this is the only one in Southwest Ohio. Actually, anywhere south of Columbus. Be real close. Mrs. Cox really stands out in her ability to create meaningful lessons to solve real-world problems which truly engage our students in the learning process. She's just a fantastic educator, and we're excited that she's here and teaching with us. Mrs. Cox has led some wonderful educational initiatives with the Anderson Township Historical Society and Urban Farm. And she's working with our food service and custodial staff to develop creative ways to improve sustainability and become more environmentally friendly. Both areas have offered many hands-on learning opportunities for students. And in closing, state finalists are reviewed. The 5 from Ohio, as well as other states, are reviewed by a national review panel. And one of those awardees, one of the 5, she got a 25% chance, will be announced by the Office of the President of the United States. And we know who, at least I know who I'm rooting for. And I think you'll all join me in rooting for Mrs. Cox and wish her the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Go, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Hook.
Yep.
Item 7.1, procedures for public comment. The board is committed to conducting its meetings in a productive and efficient manner to assure the meeting is completed in a reasonable amount of time, while also recognizing the importance of adequate opportunity for public input. In order to conduct an orderly and fair representation of expression, the board will provide a period of 30 minutes for public participation per policy PO 0169.1 at every regular board meeting. Each speaker will have 3-minute time limit. If there is more than 10 speakers, individual time will be adjusted. We do not allow yielding of time to others. The board does not discriminate based on the individual, content of speech, or viewpoint of the speaker. If several people wish to speak on the same topic, the time may be adjusted. Speakers are asked to speak from the podium and address the board. Speakers are asked to start by clearly stating their name and address. The district expects attendees to treat others with respect and courtesy when expressing concerns or criticism about issues or incidents. We have one speaker tonight, and it is Mr. Mishek.
Kevin Mishak, 8433 Holiday Hills Drive. First off, congratulations to all the administrators and all the volunteers who won. I came here to talk about the facilities plan, the 5-year plan that is being worked on by Mr. Eckhart. I'm disappointed that he's not here this evening. I'm a little disappointed still that the assessment funded last fall failed to incorporate our pools. It still is a concern after we've lost Anderson High School pool 5 years ago. Even though a plan was put forth in 2021, we still haven't moved forward on that plan. It's my understanding that the Turpin High School pool, although it was maintained about 20, 25 years ago in terms of replacement parts, I don't find anywhere where there is a plan to replace or repair it. So at some point, I would hope that the district would begin a planning session. Large-scale projects like this are going to take 5 to 10 years. We know that, all right? We've talked about the cost, whether it's $3 million from 2021 or $7 to $10 million. It's still a long-term project that needs to be started now, all right? My understanding of the process is the board has to authorize the district to start planning that process, all right? There's no incentive on their side until they're assigned the task to begin that process. I would ask the board respectfully to start that process, to look at what are we going to do about the Anderson High School pool, what are we going to do within the next 5 to 10 years about the Turpin High School pool, and how is that going to impact our community given the loss of the Sunset pool, all right? There is opportunity. I attended the Park District last night. They're looking for collaborative efforts. They do have a 23-acre dog park that we all joke about, but it's just a holding spot. They don't really have a comprehensive plan for the Beach Acres 23-acre park. There's an opportunity for it, all right? That means there must be a cooperative effort towards that end. Not just the Parks Department, the Park District, they don't have the money. Not just the schools, right? We have a lot of funding, we have a mechanism in place, we don't have a place to put it, they do. And the township, because we need somebody to kind of cooperate and look over that. Vicki Earhart is the township administrator. She is fantastic at planning things. It is one of her fine points in life, all right? There is funding available from the state on down the line, but not if there is no plan in place. That has to start here. Thank you for your time. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Item 8.10, Human Resources, Mr. Fellows.
Good evening, happy April, whatever it is. And it's a busy time in our school district in a lot of ways. It's definitely busy in HR. It's hiring season, and we've got quite a few new recommendations for the board's approval this evening. Some really great people, and kind of go through this item by item here, and I will remind the board that this begins the consent agenda. Item A there are retirements. We have one for approval this evening, Mimi Clark, 29 years in the district, and she's been at Nagel, and she's teaching 8th grade social studies right now. Wish her all the best. She made this decision a little bit later, so I think it's kind of like really exciting for her to realize that, oh, I actually can retire right now. So very much going to miss her, but excited for her future retirement plans. Item B, we have a number of resignations. One that was recently added as late as this morning. We received a resignation. So it's just kind of that season. So we will bring forward, I'm sure, one or two more before the school year's over, but you'll see certified, classified listed there from a resignation standpoint. Item C is our largest portion this evening, and I'll kind of take it in different segments here. The first, just want to point out here on the change of salary, I want to acknowledge Steve Traylor as well. Steve is transitioning to his retirement home. He also, like Brian, retired, and then we said no, and the board approved him to come back during that interim period, but he is excited to get down to Tennessee. Steve is, and he's in a spot right now where he is not going to be able to be here as frequently as full-time, so this is just a reduction of his contract for the duration of this contract. And then Mr. Hook had mentioned, oh, and I do want to also acknowledge Steve, and I want to thank Bob and his team for spending some time, and it takes a lot of time and effort to nominate folks for awards, and sometimes that process in and of itself is enough in the number of pages to fill out an application to you know, folks are busy and all that stuff. But I will say there was a lot of time and attention that was taken in Bob's world on nominating for this, but Steve has recently been the recipient of the OAESA Central Office Administrator of the Year for the state of Ohio, and he's going to be recognized for that in the summer at the OAESA conference in June. Is that right? So they had a panel, a site visit come down and met with all kinds of different folks, teachers, counselors, administrators, and it was a great opportunity to kind of brag on Steve and the great work that he has done. So I'm pretty sure they left and they were pretty much solid that he got it. But anyways, very excited for him. The other one is just kind of jumping down. We're looking forward to next year, and kind of speaking on behalf of our new administrators coming in. You've kind of been introduced to them all. They're bringing 36 years of administrative experience from all over the place. Larry had mentioned that not all of JP's, for example, is in the state of Ohio, and that is very true. He's from Southern California, and he spent time in the international school system as well. So he was in Thailand and El Salvador, and we're excited for him, for Ali, for Ashley, and certainly for Brian remaining with us and helping out Larry and the 52 custodians and, you know, however many subs we have on a regular basis as well. So there'll be some great support for our facilities and maintenance department. On the certified side, you'll see there are 23 hires recommended for approval this evening. 6 of them are returning after kind of a hire resign year, or they were filling for a leave of absence that resigned. But 23 individuals, great people. And again, I kind of want to take a moment just because of it's one thing to see all this come down. The 23 people is, you know, I should figure the amount of hours that are spent in terms of screening, you know, applicants, candidates' resumes, all that stuff. But it is a lot of work that our principals and our directors spend. So hats off to Bob and Shane, to Betsy and Melissa and Jamie and Brad Early, because we do have a number of intervention specialists on here as well, and certainly all of our principals. I'd especially like to highlight our elementary principals, because this is the second or third year that they have really gelled in terms of collaborative hiring efforts. So all 6 principals are sitting in on almost all of these first round face-to-face interviews after the screenings. And it's pretty cool because, you know, if you're Joy and you're at Max, you might not have a position, but you're still vested in the candidates that we're pulling in. And you also don't know when you're going to get a resignation. So that gives them a chance to all be on the same page, which is pretty cool. So with that, we've got about 4 more or so as of right now certified positions that we're looking to fill before the end of the year. And of course, if there are any resignations, you know, between now and then. And on the classified side, we have quite a handful that we're trying to fill up as well. That hopefully next month we will have a number to bring forward. Okay, that was a lot. We're kind of weaning down on the end of the school year, so there's only 10 there in terms of the supplemental positions here closing out the school year, and only 7 subs that we're bringing in at this point. We're almost in that part where the hay's in the barn, and you know, we're closing things down a bit. But we are thankful for 41 new volunteers that are approved here, and all the work that they do. You know, I think our principals say it all in that sense. So we're very thankful for that and for their time and effort. Last thing I would point out, items E and G. E, we've got a number of revised job descriptions in here. Most of it is alignment issues within our operations side of things, biz ops and facilities maintenance, food service, transportation. You'll see the supervisor position there for Brian. That job description kind of resurrected from one that we've used in the past. And then the workforce development specialist has been revised as well in alignment with Governor DeWine and the State Board of Education's initiatives. We're excited to recommend that Melanie move into more of a full-time position doing that great critical work, getting our kids as much of an edge as they possibly can. And the last one is just an MOU, an agreement, really trying to work with NKU, bring in student teachers, and so it's pretty standard there. Questions? Sorry, that was a lot.
The only FTE increase is Brian's job, right?
Brian's is an administrative FTE increase. We do have 3 certified side that are increases. One is preschool, and 2 are ESC classrooms, and those are the 2. We have 4 rooms here at Mercer. We're expanding those to have 2 at Wilson next year, and that is to keep our numbers down in those rooms with medically fragile or students with a number of intense needs.
Rob, those assistant principals and administrators that we're bringing on all had 2-year contracts. Is that pretty standard? Standard. Okay. Yeah. And then with the resignations, I noticed there were 5 Camp Kern teacher resignations, and Camp Kern's coming right around. Like, is that unusual that there's 5 people resigning right before Camp Kern trips?
Yeah, no, that's not unusual. It is something that we are going to try to do a better job of on a paper trail standpoint, is making sure that we've got those documented before the end of the school year.
Okay.
So.
Cool.
Did you say the hay is in the barn?
Was that not the right phrase? Yeah.
Nah, that's an Iowa thing. I got you. It's all
Iowa
right.
thing.
I
Got it.
picked right up on it too. It's good.
Just thought I'd end it on a light note for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Item 9.0, business operations. Larry's going to step in
Yes,
for John.
again, give my regards. John Eckert is in Columbus at the OSBA. He's actually doing a presentation up there. So anyway, very short, really, all we're doing here is an intent resolution. It's an intent to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, which is Beck Studios, for the auditorium stage lighting renovation at Turpin High School. So we just, the resolution is similar to others that we've approved in the past, which are basically granting permission to fully execute it, once again we get legal's eyes on it when it's the final pieces here. But we need to get this one going, because this one is a pretty big deal for Turpin. So, and that's really it.
All right, thank you. 10.0, teaching and learning. Shane?
Okay, a couple of quick ones. The first is another overnight field trip request. This is for the Educators Rising National competition. We sent a good handful of students, probably close to about 80 students to the state competition. Out of that, we have 12 students moving on to national. So request is the approval for these students to go to Washington, D.C. For the national conference. If there are no questions, ask that to be approved as part of the board agenda, consent agenda. And then the second piece is the request for approval for a foreign exchange student at Turpin. So this will be the second student that we're looking at adding as a foreign exchange student at Turpin. And again, student becomes highly recommended from the host family as well as the exchange program. As it's noted in the agenda, have to go through certain steps, get approval. It's not just a quick request. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved, but the corporations and the family have gone through all that. So again, if there are no questions, again, I ask that this be approved as part of the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Walking through an obstacle course over there. Tonight I'm bringing you the first draft of our health course of study. Before sharing, I know Shane a couple of meetings ago had shared the process that we go through for a course of study. And essentially a course of study is simply a list of the courses that we offer, the standards covered, and in those courses, or the standards covered in those courses, and the curricular resources needed for the instruction. Each content area reviews its course of study on a regular and rotating basis. We typically do it essentially every 5 years. We try to review, but we try to align it with when there are updates with the standards at the state level. For health course of study, we have not actually participated in one since 2009, so we're past due. Part of that is because in the state of Ohio, there are not state standards around health education. We follow Ohio Revised Code 3313. And so we do refer to that within our document, as well as updates to laws around the SAVE Act and around Aaron's Law. Those are different House bills that support instruction around suicide prevention and violence prevention for students. And so those have been updated within there. A course of study is, again, like I said, it's usually based on state standards. We don't have those, and so in the absence of those, we have used Ohio Revised Code, and we've also developed as a team a philosophy with the team that's part of the course of study, which is made up of teachers, administrators, and that group of people also reach out to leaders from Hamilton County, instructional leaders from other schools, and representatives from the Department of Education and Workforce Development. So at this point, what we're sharing with you is just the broad overview. We are sharing that this evening with the intent of having a month for us to have that course of study in our office, so it's there in the curriculum department for review by parents and the board itself. And then our hope is to have that approved at the May Board of Education meeting. While we've had a group of teachers together that have been working on development of this course of study, they've also started a draft of curriculum maps that would align. They are very much skeletons, though, because essentially for us to really develop those, we need this course of study approved so that we are able to develop something that is aligned to that. So it is there for your review. Do you have any questions?
I have a couple questions. I was looking at the terminology for alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and I know vaping is becoming more of an issue, and I was wondering if we could get that term added directly into that, just because I think some of the terminology seems just a little dated with some of the new.
Yeah, we could do that, and I know that our intent is to include vaping.
I figured I just
Yeah.
like it specifically listed.
We just actually just did that in policy.
Yeah.
We just revised that because it just.
It just seems relevant.
Yeah.
Well, since 2009, some things have happened in the world
Some
and in
things
the
have
area
changed,
of health that that's why it's really time for us to update the things that are relevant.
I also had one other question in regards to middle school. Just going back to it, hold on. 7th and 8th grade are lumped into one category. Are we talking to the students about this in both 7th and 8th grade, or are we just doing this?
We're by law required every year in 7th and 8th grade to have specific discussions. They're not necessarily the same requirements, but I know for every year starting in 7th grade, we have to have discussions around suicide prevention, and we have to have, so there are topics that have to be repeated, but others do not.
I think I was looking specifically at standard 3, and that seemed more like a 9th grade level topic instead of 7th and 8th grade. And so I was just kind of wondering exactly what that looked like, and did it actually repeat itself twice?
Can you tell me?
It was human body growth and development.
We are required to teach it both years.
Both years of the same topics? Okay, that's what I was wondering, if it was one grade or the other, or, okay.
Any other questions?
Now, Kim, I have some other comments that I want to make during board discussion about it to have a more robust discussion with the board, but I definitely want to make sure I thank you for the insight into the process of how a curriculum like this gets developed and the collaborative effort among district staff, health professionals, and whatnot. That's important context to know. Thank you.
We have a large group of very dedicated professionals that are doing their best for our kids.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item 11.1, technology, Mr. Meese.
Good evening. We have one item for technology tonight. That's item 11.1. We're asking for approval for the approval of bids for the purchase of equipment and services using the federal E-rate program. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was easy.
Way to land a beat
5K
that.
means their Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi's working, and that's what we want.
12.0 treasurer's update.
This
See
will
if you
be
can
pretty
be
quick.
shorter than Steve.
I don't know if I could be that short, but this is pretty short tonight. May is the 5-year forecast, so I have to be short tonight to make up for May. Anyhow, the first item on the treasurer's agenda tonight, 12.1, is a request to add a new district provider as part of our district's 403B plan. IPX Retirement has met all the requirements. They've submitted all the required paperwork. They have 8 accounts, which is what we require to be added as a provider under our 403B plan. So they have met all those requirements. So I'm respectfully requesting tonight that you add them as a provider under our 403B plan. Again, that's IPX Retirement as part of the consent agenda coming up. The next agenda item, 12.2, the treasurer's report. As always, we have 3 full slides of donations. So over the past month, we received over 24,000 in donations, which brings our total donations over this past fiscal year, which is 3/4 finished at the end of March, to 321,000. So quite a bit of money. Not only do we have people giving us of their time, as you saw earlier, they're also very generous with their financial resources. Item B gives you the snapshot of our November 5-year forecast, and we'll be updating that very soon with our May forecast. Item C presents the general fund, our 5-year forecast revenues, and it compares the estimate on the 5-year forecast to year-to-date actuals. So as you can see on this, the largest portion by far of our revenues come directly from local services or local funds. So as you see there, 75% come directly from our community, and 89% of that is pretty much residential in terms of property owners. Moving on to item D. This shows our general fund, our 5-year forecast expenditures, and it compares the estimate from the forecast to year-to-date actuals. And you hear me say this every month, you can almost divide total annual expenditures by 12. So with 75% of our fiscal year complete at the end of March, we've spent 73%. So spending is tracking exactly where we would expect at this point. Item E presents the activity of the general fund cash balance. The balance at the beginning of the year was $20.8 million. And after adding our revenues received and deducting the expenditures year to date, our cash balance stands at $30.1 million, or to put another way, enough cash to operate the district for 114 days. Of course, we do have some encumbrances outstanding against that for future goods and services that we've committed to. And once you take into account those encumbrances, our unencumbered balance was $24.4 million, which leaves 93 days of unreserved cash in order to operate the district.
So just to clarify, basically 3 months worth of cash to operate the district, but July 1st is the start of the new fiscal year. So
yes,
lining those up.
Yes.
Okay.
So moving on to item F. This is our permanent improvement fund. This only presents the call center 0000, which is the permanent improvement call center that gets the tax funds. So there are 2 slides pertaining to the permanent improvement fund, that special call center. The first one shows the revenue and expenditure activity for our fiscal year to date ended March 31st. And the second slide shows the summer projects that are coming up. And as you can see right now, we have all those summer projects budgeted. We have some outstanding encumbrances for the Turpin Lighting Program. But after tonight, and of course with the contracts presented in business operations and Steve's very short but very expensive presentation, we'll have some more encumbrances in this next month. Moving on to item G, that's the investment income snapshot. Gives you some history, and as you can see, we've received almost $1.8 million to date in our permanent improvement fund interest. Item H is the March 31st reconciliation of cash balances and investments. Moving on to item I. That is our permanent appropriations, and we have 2 changes. The first slide on permanent appropriations shows the totals with the changes included, and the second slide shows you the changes that we are asking for you to approve tonight. So we had some resource, a little bit additional allocation given to us in data communications, and in 499, we received a $31,000 safety grant. That grant will go mainly towards PD for our safety coordinator, which of course is John, and also our SROs. And then there will be quite a bit spent on replacing electronic door latches, cameras, things like that. So that's what that grant will be spent on. Also, in addition to these reports, you have on board docs, you have the monthly cash position report that just shows the detail by fund, special cost center, year to date, month to date. So that said, any questions on the treasurer's report this evening? If none, I respectfully request that you approve the treasurer's items 12.1 and 12.2 as part of the consent action items, which began with item 8.1.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve 8.1 to 12.2 as presented.
Second.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes. Item 13.0, committee reports. The first one is the policy committee report. We met on, when was it? March 27th, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm the chair of the committee, Bob's the sub-chair. We met the new Neola rep, and he shared with us the process for the policy committee. And basically, it's just these changes are based on any legal alerts or House bills or anything like that. This is volume 42, number 2 for the January 2024 updates. There's a list of policies there. You can click on them and read them. It was basically just word changes. It wasn't a lot of information. Really, it's based on the House Bill 33 operations budget and changes to the tobacco laws and vaping. So this is up for a first reading, and the next meeting it will be up for the second reading for approval. And then the next committee is teaching and learning.
Oh, that's me. We also met March 27th, I believe, and I am the chair and Wendy's co-chair of the teaching and learning. And we spent most of our time discussing the health curriculum that we were looking at approving today. We also talked a little bit about special education and making sure we're in compliance and the growing number of students with needs in our district. We also talked about, should have brought notes, I don't think about it. Our partnership that we are doing with like job shadowing and students working within the community, looking at different jobs. As my major said, like trades, internships, those kind of things. And I think that program is really growing. There was also an auditorium, I think, that the students participated in.
Yeah, the courts came in with 3 judges.
I was like, I can't remember.
Yes.
It's been too long. And so I believe there's also some schools that we are going to be getting rid of half-day kindergarten at. They'll be merging or offering only all-day kindergarten at some of the schools. I think that's...
And pre-K presented as well. Brad, that was the point at which I had to leave. We'd been there an hour and 40 minutes, and I had a daughter standing in a car pickup line.
I know.
Yes.
We still have the ability for some of those to still have the half-day kindergartners, but we may be at a different location just because we're getting out of space.
Some of those were relatively small.
In one area.
So. I do remember calling everybody for updates on that, so I had better notes at that point. But I think that was the general gist of what we discussed that day. So.
Do you have anything else to add, or?
No, I mean, we definitely had conversation about Melanie Hartung's program and the work she's done around building the work experience, the awesome opportunity with the judges. She's also offered interview and resume building activities. So really looking at how do we build work experience and maybe start to look at how to build it into the school day as well as just after school options. So that was a big part of the conversation, special education and pre-K, as was mentioned. I think part of the conversation with pre-K was understanding some of the federal and state rules around the requirements that we have as a public school district to make sure we're providing services and opportunities for all of the students who have special needs or an IEP coming in, and that our classrooms are filling up at this point, and we need to make sure that we're making sure we have the resources to provide what's required by law. So that was a part of the discussion. And then there was a large health discussion in terms of where we go, especially around elementary, looking at the conversations around puberty and when those happen, and the importance of providing kids with information as their bodies are starting to change and make sure they know what's happening and why.
And we talked about providing parents with information in fourth grade, so they would have the entire summer and resources and to talk to their children about that as well, with the discussion being had in the fall of fifth grade. So, yeah.
All right. 14.1, board discussion. I know you want to talk about health. Does anybody want to talk about anything?
Yeah, I have a few things. My list has gotten a little messy throughout, so forgive me while I look down at my notes. A couple different notes. I wanted to update the board as well as everyone else. As Larry talked about last time, we are very much working within the district on a long-term pool solution, and this summer are already looking at renovations and some redesign to make sure that the Turpin pool will be able to be sustained as a Forest Hill School District pool and will be designed as such. That said, I absolutely do think it is incumbent upon us as a board, and I've talked to all of you about this, to make sure we're asking questions and looking at all of the different options that present themselves out there. So I have been in touch with several trustees, several park board members, as well as the administrators at both the park and the township to just kind of gather information and understand where we are and look at what possibilities there might be for a collaboration. And attended the park board meeting last night as part of that. Basically, I've read all of the Economic Development Committee notes from 2020, and those who were involved, that included the district, the parks, the township, basically reached two barriers in 2020. One, was there a community need? And two, there wasn't land. And so I've been continuing to pursue these conversations from the standpoint of Coney Island just closed their pool, and the parks just bought 23 acres of Beach Acres property. So it feels like it might be a good time to revisit this conversation about a possibility for collaboration. And I have had only positive conversations with everybody I've talked to about a desire to come together and collaborate and see about this possibility. Everyone is generally in agreement that the first step needs to be a community survey to ask what the community would like to see happen with that land, which absolutely makes sense to me. So last night at the park board, they discussed early conversations, two things of note here. One, reaching out to the district and to the trustees to look at pulling together a small group to begin some of those more in-depth conversations around the table together, which I think is awesome, just to see what possibilities might be. And two, to look at a community survey and when that might happen. And the way I spoke last night and the way the conversation has kind of been left is the district would be very interested in engaging in those conversations to find out if there's a valuable place for us that would benefit our kids and community as a whole. A lot of that probably depends on what the community decides they would like to see happen with that land and whether there is a position within that for the school district. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed and make sure everyone was still on board with kind of where that's going. And it really is just at a place of asking questions, continuing to come together around the table and look at possibilities.
So is it the parks doing a survey or us?
I know. I think I got one in my email about a park survey.
So they are doing several mini surveys right now as well. That came out at the board meeting last night. They've got a dog park survey going. I think they've got a pickleball survey going based on other things they're doing from the levy that just passed for them. It was, I'm not going to remember all their Ps, but right, it was the P levy for parks, pathways, potties, pickleball, and some other things. So they've been doing some mini surveys around those pieces. This would be a much bigger undertaking to try to get a much larger swath of the community responding to really look at what is the long-term vision. The last survey that was done, I want to say was 2014. Yes, okay. Kevin's nodding. He was there too. It was 2014, and at that time there was a grand vision for a big recplex complex. I think amongst the park there is still kind of a hope and desire that that would be part of that. At that point, there wasn't really a pool as part of the equation, but again, I think the context has changed. So there's conversation about having a much larger new survey, probably guided by the Parks Board as a park survey, but also in collaboration with the district and trustees in terms of how that would look and the types of questions that would be asked. And then the information we get back from the community would probably help guide next steps in terms of who it makes sense to have involved. So.
Yeah, I think related to that, State Rep Rachel Baker came to that meeting as well and talked about the process for applying for state funding and emphasized that a collaborative community effort that involved the Parks District, the schools, the trustees, the Chamber of Commerce and whatnot weighs more heavily on the committees deciding who gets funding for a project like that to help offset some of the burden on us as taxpayers for a massive undertaking like that.
Yes, which would be amazing. I mean, it definitely sounded, just to be very transparent, that the projects that are funded are community supported, are collaborative in nature, and have a path for moving forward so that the state money is going to help tip actually getting it completed and they're not risking a potentially incomplete project. So I think there's great potential. I'm very Pollyanna about this, but I'm excited to pursue what the options might be moving forward. And I think we're in a different place than we were in 2020. So.
Is that something we can do with the parks, is get a joint survey together? Or with the at the township as well?
Yeah, I just received an email about 3 hours ago.
Oh, okay.
I meant to tell him first there was an email coming.
Well, no, about from Ken Kirshner and so yes, we're in the process of getting something together, at least to start those conversations.
Awesome.
Second on my list, I would just like to request as a board, I know we had talked about this, I think Jason mentioned it once before, coming together around a board planning meeting. I know we're in a crazy point in the year with testing and graduation, but looking maybe at some May or June dates that the five of us would be able to come together, really just around a planning session. I think we're doing a great job coming together around the management pieces of coming here and being prepared for the meetings and working together around these pieces. But I do think in terms of kind of longer picture vision, starting to think about what needs to happen around a long-term facilities plan, kind of our vision and direction that we are then able to bring back for Larry and Alana in terms of, where is the district heading? What do we need from a resource perspective, a facilities perspective, a teaching and learning perspective, whatever it might be. I think there are pieces that it's incumbent upon us as leaders to start thinking about what community input do we want around those. But I feel like until we have a chance to kind of talk and get our bearings together, we don't have time outside of this forum to move forward with that. So I would respectfully request that we could look at some dates for May, June. And I don't know if that's requesting that Larry send us some possible dates we might be able to get together or how exactly that works, but I know that's a conversation we've had.
I would say June. The school year's just slammed, I know, for everybody, but
I'm booked every weekend in May.
yeah.
Okay, so if we looked at something in June, and then I'm deferring to you all in terms of setting that up, just because I'm not supposed to email everybody, so.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. I just wanted to give one more shout out to the volunteers here tonight. I think that was phenomenal. I was actually thinking in my head, my daughter is playing a game at 10 years old called Try Not to Laugh, where you, with a friend, try to make each other laugh. And I was thinking this felt like Try Not to Cry because the comments from the kids were just very, very sweet. So that was awesome. Reminder about the Forest Hills 5K pre-party, because it's tomorrow at Wandering Monsters, 5:30 to 7:30. Free bowling for running club kids, right? I'm not making that up. Okay. So don't forget about that. And then Couple shout outs, the theater productions, Larry mentioned them, both AHS, Alice by Heart, THS Into the Woods on April 25th through 28th. AHS has a lot of things going on. The PTOs and PTAs have been reaching out to help familiarize parents getting used to Anderson High School. The AHS baseball team went and helped at the Air Festival a couple of weeks ago, which is awesome because they got the high school kids in there helping to fill volunteer spots and be with the elementary kids who will one day rise up to Anderson High School. As Larry, commended the music earlier, both AHS bands this year got superior ratings at the OMEA recent competition, and I think this may be the first time that both bands have gotten a superior rating. So that was exciting news. And AIR has a big shout out to their PTA, which is in the process of transitioning over to a PTO, which is a big organizational process, but actually brings all of the elementaries into PTO status. So there's more continuity between them. And that's been a big project that involved a lot of volunteer work. So a shout out to those AIR volunteers who've been involved in that. And those are all my notes. Thanks.
Who told you to plug the bands?
Sorry. Hey, I just want to point out that came from Kyle as well, but
Okay.
I might be biased.
Before I start, Wendy, I just want to say thank you for your time meeting with all the folks and getting caught up to date on what was happening with the pool. I know those meetings take a ton of time. We don't get paid for those meetings, so I really appreciate that update.
Yeah, thank you.
Hold on. Do you guys have anything to add before we talk about the health course? No? Real quick,
No,
just so we don't get
about the
lost.
pool.
I wanted to make a request for admin. After you guys have committee meetings, is there any way to get the slide deck to all of us? Instead of just the two that are chair and sub-chair? And then the other request from board member, when we have a committee meeting, would you guys be okay, maybe the chair and the sub-chair splitting it up to call the other three so we know what's going on, or, okay.
I just called everyone.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
It's just so we're all kind of on the same page. And we're gonna have our meeting, when is it?
May 22nd.
May, is it?
Yeah, 22nd, right?
Okay.
22nd.
But before that, Camp Kern all the fifth graders will have gone to Camp Kern. So we haven't really heard much about that, Bob. I mean, everything's good to go? Okay, good. Wish everybody a fun time for Camp Kern.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to get those out.
We're rolling.
Awesome.
You said the slide deck. We still haven't seen the slides from the speaker at the last NAGLE meeting.
Bill,
Yeah.
I got it because I reached out
You
and
did?
asked for it. I can pass it on. Am I allowed to do that?
Website?
I can forward it.
There was like a PowerPoint presentation, everything he had. We were all supposed to get
Yeah.
that. I haven't seen it.
Give them to you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right.
All right, so yeah, I had mentioned that I wanted to talk a little bit about the health curriculum, particularly the human development and growth in the body sections. I just want to preface this by saying that I recognize this is a polarizing topic in our community and even among our board. And so I think this is our first big test of a board to have a conversation about something where we might stand on different sides of the fence on and have a civil conversation to see if we can come to some agreement on something. I think what I'd like to do for the next 45 to 50 minutes is talk to you all about 5 to 7 minutes, but that doesn't sound as bad when you initially.
I just want to get out of the.
I hope that's not true.
That's a joke. It's a joke. Okay, so as Kim was mentioning earlier, the state law guides us on what we teach related to sex education. Ohio Revised Code Section 3313.6011 specifically. And when I read this revised code, it seems very outdated, in some ways draconian, in ways that are meant to shame students out of having sex at the expense of providing medically accurate information about sex, sexuality, relationships, consent, and human development. Specifically in the revised code, there's things in there that say, in terms of what schools are required to teach regarding sex education, is that stressing that students should abstain from sexual activity until after marriage, teaching the potential physical, psychological, emotional, and social side effects of participating in sexual activity outside of marriage, teaching that conceiving children out of wedlock is likely to have harmful consequences, emphasize adoption as an option for unintended pregnancies. Of course, no mention of abortion, which was just passed as a constitutional amendment in Ohio in November. And we see the influence of this Ohio law in our health curriculum as it relates to human growth and development, where the sex education conversation is housed. So my comments here tonight are not meant as a criticism of the team that put the health curriculum together. I think it's really in-depth. I think it's awesome, and I'm by no means a sex ed curriculum expert, but I do have a lot of familiarity with creating and assessing student learning outcomes. And when I look at the health curriculum, particularly as it relates to the growth and development section where the sex ed is discussed, some of these learning outcomes, like at the middle school level, it says students will demonstrate the ability to use interpersonal communication skills to promote an age-appropriate choice related to being abstinent until marriage. Use decision-making skills in relationship to puberty, human sexuality. And what they actually get in there are content related to reproductive body parts, managing difficult relationships, individual rights to refuse sex. I know Kim mentioned that the curriculum is kind of in a skeleton form, but doesn't really have anything specific about asking for consent and receiving consent, demonstrating consent. It also includes responsibilities of parenthood, STIs, benefits of abstinence, and then sexual risk behaviors. At the high school level, there's a big emphasis on teaching students how to get information outside of the schools about sex education, which is great, but also it explicitly says in our health curriculum that we are to explain that most students are not sexually active, which I have some data that I'll talk about in a second that is actually false. As well as plan strategies for avoiding situations that place one at risk for engaging sexual behavior. So when I read these, like, these are not learning outcomes. I read them and they come off to me as scare tactics, shaming, some information literacy, sex avoidance, and misinformation brought about by abstinence-only education. And if we compare these sections of the health curriculum to the healthy eating portion of the curriculum, drug, alcohol, and tobacco education, we compare those to what's included as part of sex education. The sex education part is much less. The other ones are much more in depth, much more robust. So what's the big difference? Well, those other ones, healthy eating, drug, alcohol, tobacco, they're not driven by religion and politics, but rather best practices guided by the scientific community. We want our kids to be financially literate, and we teach them drug and alcohol literacy and information literacy. So why not a medically accurate sexual literacy program that parents can choose whether they want their children to participate? I was talking to Kim earlier today. She said that we actually have very few opt-outs as it is related to the human development portion of our curriculum at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. Parents trust the teachers and the districts with this information, but much of the information they get is guided by Ohio law, is outdated and inaccurate, stigmatizes sex, only presenting it as a negative, presumes heterosexuality, stigmatizes the experience for children that were born out of wedlock, and leaves kids uninformed and have to search for information themselves. I mentioned we lean into that piece about asking them or teaching them how to find information, who to talk to, but that information hasn't been vetted and students don't know what they don't know. They don't know the right questions to ask or how to ask them. We can provide resources both in the classroom and outside of the classroom to help answer difficult questions, but we get to vet what those answers are instead of them stumbling across something they might find through a Google search. I strongly believe that we underestimate kids' capacity to learn and talk about uncomfortable topics and engage in course materials, and we overestimate at times parents' preparedness and ability and willingness to have these conversations. So there is a provision in that Ohio Revised Code that allows for additional sex education. And it reads, I'll paraphrase, but a school district can choose to offer additional instruction in venereal disease or sex education, not specified, blah, blah, blah. The school shall notify all parents or guardians of that instruction, including name of the curriculum, all this stuff, and then no district or school shall offer that instruction to a student unless that student's parent or guardian has submitted written permission for that student to receive that instruction. And this really excites me because I'm confident that one thing that all 5 of us can agree on is that we share a common ground on parents being able to have a choice in what their children learn in school, right? we ran, a lot of us, all of us had some sort of messaging around wanting parents to have a say in their kids' education. And we wouldn't be alone in this venture. According to the 22-23 Venereal Disease and Sexual Education Audit performed by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, there are 58 school districts in Ohio that offer additional sex ed instruction beyond what is required with the abstinence-only training in the Ohio Revised Code. And in each case, parental notification was provided, and parents had the choice to opt into that part of the health curriculum. So I'm really hoping to find some common ground here and some agreement over the idea of providing some sort of optional sex ed education that we can provide guidance to Kim and Bob and the rest of the team to do some research on these things. And I'll get to my specific asks shortly, but I wanted to share some insights from the scientific community regarding sex ed in schools. I really thank everybody for their patience on this, because I think this is some really important information. I have reviewed dozens of peer-reviewed articles on this topic and pulled 15 or so for the board to review. I'm going to cite a few of these, and so I created a shared folder that I sent out to you all before the meeting. I also have printed copies of the articles. If you all wanted more context on what these studies were about, I have them available for you. But I want to talk about a few different aspects of Ohio's sex education model and some of the benefits and drawbacks of it. Starting with abstinence-only education, which is what's required in Ohio. So there was a study in 2007 in the Public Library of Science Medicine Journal, and they noted, it, quote, 2 recent systematic reviews of abstinence-only curricula suggest that the best implemented and evaluated programs fail to delay the initiation of sexual intercourse or to produce other reductions in HIV risk behaviors. They also found no delays in sexual intercourse among virginity pledgers. And a U.S. congressional review found that 11 of the 13 most frequently used abstinence-only curricula contained false, misleading, or distorted information, including inaccurate information about contraceptive effectiveness. There was another study also in 2007 from the British Journal of Medicine who was looking at the effectiveness of abstinence-only programs in high-income countries, and they used the U.S. as the context for that. Finding, quote, evidence from this review suggests that abstinence-only programs that aim to prevent HIV infection are ineffective. And then there was another study that was, I feel really important to this conversation. 2017 study from the American Journal of Sexuality Education entitled "Worth the Wait: The Consequences of Abstinence-Only Sex Education for Marginalized Students." And these were interviews that were conducted with young women, youth of color, and LGBTQ or other gender nonconforming students. And there were 6 themes that emerged from the interviews with this population regarding abstinence-only education. One was a lack of practical information that met them where they were in their current stage in their lives. 2, abstinence-only education tends to normalize sexist and heterosexist stereotypes, which leads to othering of students of certain identities. Students of color were often adultified, where assumptions were made on their sexual activity, which resulted in an education that also, wasn't relevant to them for where they were in their lives. There was a lack of emotional safety, where LGBTQ students did not feel safe asking questions or expressing themselves in these courses. And there was a reliance on fear and shaming, in addition to some of the information sharing for outside resources, as I had mentioned before. So this is just a sampling of studies among dozens in the scientific community that highlight the limitations of abstinence-only education, that talk about how it doesn't lead to delays in sexual intercourse. It doesn't lead to decreases in sexually transmitted diseases. It's not effective in preventing HIV, and it creates a place where marginalized students feel out of place within this form of education. On the other hand, there are multiple models of sexual literacy programs, medically based sexual literacy programs. One study specifically from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2022 examined 30 years of county-level data on teen births in counties that receive federal funding assistance to support these medically accurate sexual literacy programs that include more than just abstinence, include robust courses on gender identities, human sexuality, contraceptive use. And they found, quote, Results of this quasi-experimental design provide evidence of the causal effect of federal funding for more sexually literate education on teen births. We find that federal funding reduced the overall rate of teen births at the county level by more than 3%. So that was over the course of 30 years. Teen birth rates in counties that supported sexual literacy had teen births decrease by 3%. Another study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior from 2021 found that laws that required more medically based sexual literacy programs decreased sexual activity and raised contraceptive use for youth who are sexually active, while state policies that mandate abstinence were found to increase sexual activity and decrease hormonal contraceptive use among youth who are sexually active. Evidence was found that in districts where the districts had local control over the content, such as what we're talking about here, like this supplemental content to what the state provides, there was a decreased probability that high school youth were having sex in the 3 months prior to when the survey was taken. Whereas requiring abstinence-only sex education led to an increase in the likelihood of sex in the prior 3 months to when the survey was taken. Let's see. I know this is a lot. There was a few other studies that I did want to mention. There was a study in 2021 in the Journal of Adolescent Health. It was a meta-analysis. It was a review of literature over 30 years on sex education in kindergarten through 12th grade. What they found was schools that adopted sexual literacy programs can also lower homophobia and homophobic-related bullying, can increase understanding of gender and gender norms, and it can improve knowledge and skills that support healthy relationships, right? And that there was evidence to suggest that sexuality education is most effective when it's begun early, before sexual activity actually begins. So what we're talking about here are outcomes of reducing the instances of adolescent sex, reducing outcomes that we're all interested in, such as STIs, teenage pregnancy, increasing things like contraceptive use, decreasing things like homophobia and homophobic bullying, and increasing tolerance. Voices that are often left out of this conversation are student perspectives and what students want to learn when it comes to sex education, all the time as adults making those decisions for kids. So there are another couple of studies I want to mention regarding these student perspectives from 2020 in the Journal of Adolescence. This was a review of literature, 16 studies in this topic between 2008 and 2019, which they found that adolescents viewed sexual health programs favorably if they utilized knowledgeable, open-minded educators and created a comfortable environment, provided content throughout early and late adolescence, and delivered relevant educational material. Where they destigmatized sexual health and improved the relevance of course content delivered. That relevance of course content is really important to this discussion. There's a 2022 article in the academic journal Sex Education that examined sex education preferences in a rural Indiana school district. Their data was collected through focus groups and web surveys. It's a mixed method study. And it's a district that teaches abstinence-only education. And this came straight from the students of those programs that said that the information was not relevant and they were being shamed into not having sex, that abstinence isn't relevant to them now or later in their lives because, quote, most people in the schools are already having sex, and so they're unable to connect the education that they're learning to their current lifestyles. There was a resistance to abstinence-only education. The students were not listening and not paying attention. And so what they wanted was best practices for safe sex and information on what to do if you feel like you have contracted a STI. Information on abortion, even though in Indiana and the district it's controversial. There's religious objections to it, but recognizing it as needing the information to make a decision that's best for them. And regarding sexuality, it was noted that the LGBTQ students in the district were afraid of being pressured and being made fun of. There's one more study that I specifically want to mention regarding student perceptions on this. There was a very recent study, just came out in 2024, from the Journal of Adolescent Health, that examined a sample of nearly 1,400 middle and high school students in New York State and asked them what questions they had about sex and sex education to help try to guide the content that they would provide in these courses. And the topics included consent, pregnancy, withdrawal or pulling out, STIs, condoms, birth control, pain during intercourse, body and hygiene, alternative forms of sexual intercourse, and then some other individually coded ones that didn't nest into a higher theme. I mentioned earlier that in our district's health curriculum, it says that we're supposed to emphasize that most students aren't sexually active. And I said that that's not true. I referenced several studies already that talked about it. But there's other research that I provided in here. There's so much research out there that talks about the ages where students become sexually active. I presented some, as I mentioned, but I was able to find a study that really speaks to this. It's a nationwide sample of nearly 6,000 men and women ranging from ages 14 to 94 to examine rates of sexual behavior. So obviously we're interested in the adolescents in the study. So among the adolescent men in the study, 67% were sexually active by the age of 15. And we're talking about a very broad definition of what sexually active means. 9.9% by the age of 15 had engaged in what we would consider traditional intercourse with someone of the opposite sex. That number went up to 30.3% by 17 and 62.5% by 19. So 62.5% of adolescent males by 19 years old had what we would consider traditional intercourse in a nationwide sample. Among adolescent women, 43.3% were sexually active by 15, again with this broad definition. 12.4% had engaged in traditional intercourse with someone of the opposite sex by the age of 15. That goes up to 31.6% by 17 and 64% by 19. This data even skews even lower. I can show you some research on that when we're talking about adolescents from low-income families. So now we get to my big ask. It wasn't quite 45 minutes. We can't continue to teach abstinence-only education. I think regardless of our personal values and opinion, the data is overwhelming, and many kids are sexually active. Again, broadly speaking, sexually active when they're like natal age and freshmen in high school age. And we are doing our kids a disservice. I'm being very sincere here. I'm not trying to be political or push any kind of agenda. I'm trying to follow data and science for the benefit of our kids, while respecting parents' rights to choose what is best for their families. I did speak with Bob Buck and Kim Tinsley, and they expressed that they need guidance from us on how to proceed. And I want to remind the board that we're not responsible for getting into the weeds of the curriculum and what books they're reading or what videos they're showing in class. But what they need to know from us is if this is something that we'd like to pursue for our school district, and we would need a majority of people on board to kind of commission them with, hey, let's go out and research and find what some of these options are. So here is my ask plainly. Would the board support Bob and Kim and the rest of the health curriculum team researching some medically accurate sexual literacy programs being used both in Ohio and across the country that we could potentially offer our students as a form of what we'll call abstinence plus sex education, where abstinence is still emphasized as the only way to prevent teen pregnancy and STI contraction, but adding additional content related to human development, sexuality, gender identity, and some of these other topics that I mentioned, while again respecting parents' rights to choose to make sure we stay compliant with Ohio Revised Code. So thank you very much for all that. I know that was a ton of information. It's a mouthful. It's a controversial topic, but thank you for your time on that. I'd love to hear the board's perspectives.
I know way back when I was in junior high, there was abstinence, and then there was the side effects of not adhering to abstinence, which was STIs and pregnancies and things like that. That was taught to us. I don't really have an issue with that being taught. I mean, this is cause and effect type of thing. The rest of your data, I'd have to read it. I mean, it sounds like you sent us a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so all that stuff I cited is in the shared folder, and I have it printed if you prefer that. So you can go get more context and read up on yourself. There's tons of other studies too, and if you have other studies that say opposite, I'd love to read those as well.
I have never taken so many notes during a board meeting, so thank you for that. I would be interested in pursuing what other options are out there, and I know there are curricula that go to another extreme, and I don't think this district would be in support of something that was fully comprehensive. I get that, but I do feel like there is a middle ground somewhere, and I had called Kim about this too, concerned that when I looked at this and have also looked at some of the CDC data, and I've seen anywhere from 40 to 60% of adolescence by 18-year-old being involved in sexual activity. And I think, are we preparing our kids for the world they live in right now? We are educators. Our job is not to shame. Our job is not to fearmonger. Our job is to teach and to provide accurate information, no matter what the topic or conversation is. And so I do feel like if there are opportunities to make sure that the information our kids are seeking is accurate and the sources they are finding are valid, I think that would be really important. I'm gravely concerned that with the limited amount we talk about in the fear-mongering, we do make this irrelevant for kids, make it feel like it's not grounded in what they need, and then they're going to go to their peers and they're going to go to the internet. And that's a scary proposition to me if that's your next best source of information without really understanding what you're looking for. So I would support looking for what other options are that would maybe provide a little bit more in-depth knowledge with some of the things like, yes, abstinence is the only 100% guarantee. But, I was looking at some different information today just as I was reviewing the health curriculum over the weekend. And one of the things I found recently was, because there are other forms of birth control available now, they've actually seen a decreased use in condom rates among adolescents, not understanding that that is going to be your second best option for preventing an STI. Right? So yes, you may be able to prevent pregnancy, but that doesn't mean you're keeping yourself safe in other ways. And it just feels like we're at a point where maybe our kids don't have the accurate information they need to be making less risky decisions. And with 2 teens sitting in the school district, this feels pretty real. So.
Yeah.
So just to share, in 7th grade, they talk about how STDs are transmitted, signs of STDs. They talk about long-term and short-term consequences of STDs. They also talk about relationships, alcohol, and drug use, and sexual risks that are accompanied by drinking or doing drugs. That's in the curriculum here. They also talk about, the benefits of being sexually abstinent, which I think is a huge benefit, especially through high school. The more partners you have, the worse off you are in relationships down the road. So I don't see any problem with that continuing to be taught. It talks about engaging in sexually risky behavior. It talks about, it talks about effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of condoms and reducing the risk of pregnancy and STDs. That's all being talked about in 7th and 8th grade. Scrolling down to high school. So I do not believe that we need to go into any more depth at such a young age. I think this is a conversation that parents need to be having with their children, which is why we had talked in great length about giving parents tips and material on how to talk to their children about these things. Because you might be okay with your child having an abortion, but that is something that I have very strong feelings against, and I would not even be okay with that being discussed in the classroom. So I think that when you're talking about things that are incredibly polarizing, whether it be religiously speaking or politically speaking, those are conversations that I believe are best left to the parents and at home. So our job is to educate students and prepare them for jobs in the future and for college or trades or that kind of stuff. I do not believe it is our job to step in as a parent and cover sexual identity or sexual behavior or any of these other topics in great detail with children, because this is such a hot topic and an emotional topic, I think this is something that is best left for parents to discuss with their children, and we can give them resources on how to discuss things, but I do not think this is something that needs to be brought into the classroom.
But Katie, I appreciate what you're saying, and I hear you, and I feel the same way, and I guess I have two responses as a parent. One, I fully support what you're saying, and I think that's why an opt-in would be incredibly important. And I can tell you, too, as a parent, I would opt into this because for the number of times I've tried to talk to my kids that they don't really want to engage in a full conversation about this with their parents is more than one. And so there's, you know what I mean? So why would we limit options in terms of the education we want to give to kids? And again, you would have the option. It would be, was it opt-in? Was that the way?
Yeah, I mean,
with
in the revised code, any additional programming that we would offer is required to be opt-in.
Right, so it would still be very much parent choice because you would have to opt into any more than the Ohio Revised Code information. So you're asking to pursue what else is out there just so we know what the other curricula look like, what the options would be?
Yeah, and I'm not saying tonight we're deciding on anything. I would envision, Kim, correct me, like you would be able to provide us with some examples of what some of these additional curriculum could look like, and then we could potentially vote on if there's something we wanted to adopt. And so my ask was, if there's not interest from the board, we don't want to waste their time in having them do this research. But if there was a majority of people who are like, I'd like to see what some of these other options are out there, not making a commitment that we're going to adopt any of them at this point, just do we want to see what some options are because there is some compelling data? That's what I want to know.
What about if you had something at the next Parent Academy for parents? Would that be beneficial?
I mean, I think all of it's beneficial. And I think that's something we can have a conversation about is like, well, what does it actually look like? Not everything has to happen in the classroom. There can be, I mentioned like this idea of like we could provide additional information rather than just directing them like, well, you can go talk to your doctor, you can talk to these people. Here's some actual information that you and your parents can consume in the form of articles, books, podcasts, videos that can help lead to those discussions in the home. Katie, you did mention there are in the curriculum, there are a lot of these things related to STIs and condoms and all this type of stuff. There are some specific things that I think are missing. And again, I'm not a sex education expert, so I don't know where age appropriately this fits in. But things that I notice being absent from our curriculum are human development, which includes specifically sexual orientation and gender identity, especially going back to that piece that shows that can help lower homophobia and homophobic related bullying. Increased body positivity, conversations around that, more information about healthy relationships, medically accurate sexual literacy. So, what is actually happening in your body? Again, I don't think we want to go down to some far extreme. I know this isn't like a liberal community. We have concerned parents about a topic like this. But another topic I think is vitally important that we do not have in our curriculum is media literacy. And what I mean by media literacy within this context is as it relates to adult content online. It's very easy to find. It's very accessible. We talk about addiction as it relates to drugs and alcohol, tobacco. There's addiction problems in our country as it relates to adult content online that can serve to set realistic expectations for what sexual relationships look like, realistic expectations for what occurs during sex, and promotes violence against women, which this is definitely something we don't want to promote.
I actually agreed with you on something.
There we go, see?
Porn addiction is an issue. And
you said porn, I didn't.
That's what it is. It could be an addiction. It could be a problem in relationships going forward, and it does give you unrealistic ideas of relationships in the future. So I actually agree with you on that.
So that's a type of thing, like that media understanding. I'm not suggesting at all watching that stuff in class. What I'm suggesting is teaching our kids what it is the expectations it creates around you, the dangers of it, those unrealistic expectations that it creates in your mind that leads to unhealthy relationships. There's no component of our curriculum, to my knowledge right now, that covers that piece. I didn't make up that abstinence plus term, by the way. That's a very widely used term as in states where there is abstinence only in education. We're still emphasizing abstinence is the only 100% effective way, but there's these other pieces that we can add to it. What those are, that's up to the committee to potentially research for us. Then we can review it a little bit more closely to see if it would be something we would want to adopt.
Well, I don't wish to see the Teaching and Learning Committee look at anything else. I am fine with the abstinence curriculum as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Look, similar to what Katie said, I think a lot of this is the parents' role.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my opinion on it.
I would absolutely love to see more, because I hadn't even thought about the adult content literacy piece of it and where that plays into what kids are finding when they're looking for the information they're not getting.
Sarah and Katie, I'm just asking your opinions on these things. Would you agree that not all parents have the same knowledge level or comfort level or skill set to have a standardized type of conversation with students, with their kids rather? So like, for example, what the conversations you might have with your kids are going to be different with the conversations I might have with my kids. So not everybody is getting the same type of education on what I don't know everything there is to know about it either, and I'm assuming neither do you. Like, we want to make sure our kids are having safe relationships, healthy relationships, they're educated on this, and they're not going online to look in the choose your own adventure world of Google to find out what this is all about.
Well, hopefully those parents have controls on their kids' phone or devices not to be able to search that information. No, I stand firm on what I said.
So the second question I wanted to ask then, and again, I'm not trying to get in an argument about this stuff, was I know parent choice was important to you all when you ran. How does that jive with, I'm saying this would be, parents could opt into this. We're giving the parents the choice of what they would want their students to learn. And it seems like that's what you were saying when you guys ran, is that you were for parent choice in their education. But now you're saying you don't want parents to have that, like, I don't want it. So can you help me understand a little bit more?
Sure, I think we should follow the law, and it is your choice as a parent to have that kind of discussion with your child.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've done a lot of research. It sounds like you're really passionate about this subject, and I don't see what's stopping you from having that conversation with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get together with your friends and talk about it, I mean, that's your prerogative. But no, I think we should keep what we have as an abstinence only, because that's, that's where I would stand.
Okay. All right, Bob. What do you think?
Oh, I said abstinence, and like I learned in junior high, it was the pros and not the pros and cons, the causes and effects. Abstinence only, and then if you choose not to, these are the consequences of your actions. I'm not saying a child is a negative consequence. I'm just saying this.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying you would not support research into additional options that we could be presented with from the district?
I wouldn't go past what we've already, like, if what I just said is about as far as I'm willing to go right now.
Which is what we have right now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything for board discussion? No? Okay. The next meeting, the date did change, so it is May the 22nd, and it is here still at Mercer. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming.